Hi, and welcome to this podcast, Ali. Uh, there is a dual happiness in having you on the podcast. One is obviously getting a guest just in time so that I can upload it. But the second is I have seen you after a long time, and it's such a pleasure seeing you. So I was thinking today, okay, what could be a probable first question since we haven't connected in a long time? I have an interesting question, thankfully. Uh, Before I begin, can you tell us a little about yourself for the audience to know?
Um, okay. First of all, Sundar, thanks for having me on this. I follow your podcast more or less most of the time, but I miss some of the episodes. But a little bit about me. Well, brought up in South Bombay, privileged lifestyle. Um, had in London for a major part of my life. Came back to India, went into school. Um, Lost my dad at the age of 10, lost my mom 10 years later, only child. uh, you know the world kind of changes once you're alone. Relatives and everyone's got their own lives to live, and it goes on, but you kind of make it. So God has a path for your life, and that's all you need to know. So you kind of meet the people along the way that truly want to help you out. You incidentally, by the way, are one of them, that.
Oh, okay.
and and it's just yeah. So basically, did my BCom, as you all have to learn nothing from it, and did my MBA and learned nothing from that either. And one fine day, I was sitting with a very dear friend, and he and his friend convinced me to quit it all and do my photography, which I did, and I haven't looked back ever since. And the rest
Wonderful.
is the history.
Yeah, it is indeed. Uh, it's fascinating to know this other backstory. Some parts of it I obviously knew, but some parts are new to me as well. Uh, I'm quite fascinated that instead of directly saying that I'm a photographer, you went into the backstory, and which kind of is also related to my first question. Uh, you are quite a passionate photographer. Uh, you can be very unreasonable till you get the kind of shot that you want. Whatever I remember of what you used to tell me, and the amount of hard work you used to put in. One of the questions that I want to ask you, as a human being, as a person, as a family person, the parts of you which are not your professional life, how does this uh, obstinate behavior towards getting what you want with your professional, uh, whatever you are aiming at that point of time, affect your personal side or your human side? Or I, by human, I don't mean the professional is not human, but uh, obviously professionally we are in a world where we value this a lot, the kind of output that we bring to the profession that we've chosen. So how does that impact the inner life that you lead as a family person or a father, a husband?
So so you always come straight down to the meat and potatoes, and you don't even give me time to prep. So I'm going to answer it exactly as you probably want me to answer it, which is from the hilt. Uh, so yeah, as far as my profession is concerned, I am obstinate. I'm probably not. Everyone says that Ali is a really difficult person to work with.
True,
I've lost a lot of work because of that. I've gained even better clients because of that.
true.
I've got a 90%. My client base is probably 100 people. Out of that, 90% are repeats. Okay.
Okay.
Uh, and it's clients that we build relationships with. So it's a very long term marriage for me. specifically. I think, it's not being obstinate, Surinder. It's more about being truthful to what you want to do and what you want to achieve. Just to give you a background on the business, and Surinder, you know me well before most people knew me professionally, okay? And that there's that saying, the path to excellence is worth the while, but at the end, there really is nothing like that. Excellence doesn't exist, right? It's a race with yourself. Uh, I wouldn't do it if I wasn't committed to it. Okay, so it's not being obstinate. It's just of finding. It's just a way of that I think I would like to do a job better, for which my client pays me what they do, and why they would want to hire me. As far as my family is concerned, you know, Surinder, you can be obstinate, but when you have two girls,
Mhm.
you realize how powerless you really are. You know, and trust me, there's no obstinacy, there's no stubbornness, there's no my way there. And I think with today's generation, there shouldn't be, right? Um, I lost my parents at a very young age, and I'm the only child.
Yeah.
And I was blessed with two girls, twins that too, right? So that urge for me to be able to, grow ties and kind of let them meander and find their own way is very important, because Surendra, it happened to me. It happened to me. You were one of those instruments. I mean, it happened to me. Um, I started my photography at the age of 13, right? After my dad died. And then after my mom died, it was a great channel for me to focus on all the positivity in my life, right? Um, it was a tough time for me. There was no one. Imagine getting up in the morning and I'd have this really wicked thought that if I died today, it wouldn't make a difference to anyone's life. It's a scary thought to have, right? So coming back to what I was saying is that innate. Um, I think you have to let your kids meander, because the universe conspires to make a path for those who know where they want to go, and that's God's honest truth, right? So the last time I worked was at Low. I've never worked since then. I've only played, correct? And I mean, if all the clients really knew how much fun I had doing my photography, they probably wouldn't pay me, and that would be probably okay as well, right? But like you said, remember we used to have these conversations, Bunty. We used to sit in the cafeteria with Chetan, and we used to speak about this, right? And really, it's true, because uh, before I got this job with Low, you always asked me about, Ali, why servicing mein kya kar raha hai? Yeah, remember you used to ask me this. Let me tell you the insight to that. The insight to that is that life for everyone, no, Sundar turns full circle, right? Everyone goes through it. I finished after my mom died, and I got my work to do with the geographic, and I met Susan Smith there, and she was one of the most instrumental people in my life, also. And I wanted to do architectural photography. I went up. I went up to Delhi to meet one of India's best architectural photographers. I won't mention the name, and he told me to be at his office at Connaught Place at 9:30 in the morning. And I turned up at 9:30 in the morning there. All right. And he made me wait till 3:15 in the afternoon. And there was a boy. It was a boy at the time. I was just after my 12th standard. I had my portfolio in my hand and I went to show it to him. And he was a god for me. He was a god, right? Uh, I mean, he had an aura about him, and it was just something else. And I went into the studio. He sat me down. He leafed through 120 photograph portfolio in 3 minutes. Okay. And at the end, all he told me was, Ali, I don't think you have the potential. and I think you should do something else, right?
You should.
He said, I don't think you have the potential. I think you should do something else. Correct? But today, I still pass that bench where I got out of his office. I sat on that bench at Connaught Place in Delhi, and I can take you to it today blindfolded, right? Um, and I sat there and I cried because at that point of time, there is no better option. You don't know. So I believe I am born to do photography. Seriously. And I mean that in the truest form of the word. I am born to do this. I couldn't do anything else, right? Even if I tried. So my entire, so my, anyway, coming back to life turning full circle, in 3 years, he and I competed for a shoot with a client. I got the job being, I think, 15% higher on a quote than him.
Recently?
No, 4
Within
years
3?
after he turned me out.
Oh, okay.
4 years after he turned me out, right? Today we meet as equals at the photography guild meetings. He doesn't still remember that I was there. He comes and comments on my work and tells me how great it was. I don't feel the need to tell him because that would demean me, and my parents haven't taught me that. But life, Sundar turns full circle for everyone. It's not just me. It'll turn it for you. It'll turn it for your daughter. Inshallah, it'll happen for all our kids. Right? The problem is that you have to be able to be gracious at that point to accept it and to take it in the right spirit. You don't take it in the right spirit, and then you've had it. So coming back to my kids, so that's why I tell my kids, I said, do what you all want. You must excel at it. And I don't mean academically, I don't mind money-wise. Excelling has so many definitions. For me, it is probably getting recognition and getting my portfolio to a different level. For you, it is probably having a conversation with the person and trying to figure out what makes him tick. For my little daughters, it might be something else. It doesn't have to be money, right? And you will know this, Panti, when you and I were growing up, and you and I have come from a similar generation, correct? Friends were still friends, right? I don't know if you've noticed this, but the world today has become so artificial, even in the corporate sector, that I still don't quite fit in. And I could never understand why. And then I realized that the world has gone so far ahead in terms of projecting stuff that they aren't really, that it scares me that my daughters would have to do it. And I'm consciously trying to tell them to be themselves. They don't have to be something they don't want to be. You see profiles on LinkedIn and you see profiles on Facebook and it's so artificial. I don't know if you feel this. I'm sure you feel this, right? And you talk about values. The values workshop is about taking in, and from whatever I've seen of the values workshop, and which is why I unmistakably said I wanted to be a part of it, was because of the fact that it always deals with stuff that is innately inside. But I don't think, 60 years down the line, there'll be place for a values workshop. Not because the generation coming up doesn't have values, but it's just that it's conveniently overpassed, it's conveniently forgotten. And I think it's an extremely sad situation to be in. I mean, corporate life today, I mean, I'm so much a part of it. But I realize it's so shallow in so many ways. Yeah. It's so put on. So I still wear my t-shirt and pair of jeans and go in and do my shoot, and everyone tells me, oh, we were expecting someone else. And I said, yeah, you were expecting someone in a suit and a tie and with this whole team and with the prima donna attitude, and you got stuck with me instead. But unfortunately, you've paid me my 75% and you can't get out of it now. Right? So that's basically so much of it. So I just ask my kids to meander through life. You have to meander through it. You can't meander through it, and you've rogered yourself.
It's interesting that although it seems a very longish answer, but you've been punctuating it with similar points again and again because it means so much to you. To answer the question you asked, do I see this in the outside world? Yeah, my heart is heavy sometimes. I feel this week has also particularly been similar because I've been struggling to get a guest. I've told you this. This is kind of a reminder of what I am bringing to the world, or I'm trying to contribute as a catalyst in my head. Somebody else called the values workshop a body of work a week or so back. And I was smiling at myself because I don't see it as mine. To me, it is your voice, somebody, whoever I manage to get on, it is their voice. And it is a world that we are creating. This is a silent rebellion of sorts. It's a silent rebellion against the supposed status quo where people like Ali would not want to come and talk about their inner life, but they are comfortable enough to do so because of the ambience we are together creating.
No, we do it because of you. I mean, I know you. You've been like this all your life. I mean, I remember when we were working together, you were exactly like this. You always questioned, right? We should have these conversations. It was always a question. I remember our conversation was intrinsically a conversation of questions, right? We may
This is
not have
what the
had all the
idea
answers
is,
there.
because of the last few lines that you said. The idea is to provoke.
Absolutely.
In my head, the idea is to provoke, and the conversations can turn wherever they want to. There have been times when I've been listening to things which I do not like, which do not match with mine, but that's not the point at all. As long as they are deeper ways of looking at things, and they are an honest way to reach out to each other. Talking about vulnerabilities in a world which is so proud of its strength in every manner.
Yeah.
These lies that you speak of, or these shallow things, shallow behavior, or the short-term attitude of a lot of corporates and people that we are surrounded with. Today, after a long time, I traveled in a local train, not because of anything else, but because after COVID, there's very less traveling I intend to do. And most of the time I'm on my bike and I manage to be around in 20, 30 minutes, I reach wherever I have to. But today it was raining and I decided to take the train. And I was inside the train and I took a fast train. People who are watching it from Bombay, they would know that it is always crowded. And I had something fragile in my hand. And I was standing and I was very happy because I was thinking of a couple of my friends who are very accomplished in the corporate world. And they were there.
Accomplished by whose standards? Yours or
in
the
the world,
sense?
in the world that we live, they are presidents and vice presidents. They have large cars and they have good flats and a good sense of where to invest and all kinds of things. They are good people. It's not that I look down upon them. They are very close to me, friends, relatives, all of them included. And I said, yeah, they've not been traveling in the train for about now 15, 20 years now. And I continue to do so because I remember one part of me many years back, I had called this the Amol Palekar life in my head. And I had said, isse bahar nahi jana. I want to stay middle class. In my head, that was my ambition, that somehow I should manage to satisfy my creative urge without losing out my basics. And I didn't know how, because today it seems very funny that I live that kind of life. But at that point of time, I had no clue. And I used to think either I'll have to sell out or else I'll be a good for nothing. There is no in between. But today I find it lucky that, like your life, my life, I get some people who understand me, some people who don't like me.
Yeah.
And I managed to get the kind of work that keeps my head ticking. I make decent money most of the time. And I find there is a path somewhere out there if you stick to what your basics are. And
absolutely,
when you talk about meandering, the reason why I'm bringing this up, because a lot of people might think meandering may mean goalless. It's not goalless. It is finding that every goal can change. At some point, you may realize, okay, today this is my high point, but this doesn't matter these days. So today I'll do this. So I remember, funnily enough, you keep asking me whether I remember what I used to tell you. Me and Chetan very fondly remember nagging you and troubling you and really being quite vicious about it, because we were very clear that you got to live your dream if you want to have a good life. We didn't know that you would be successful or this successful or not or whatever. The idea is not about planning for every turn on the way. It cannot happen. It just cannot happen. No matter how many these guys who I talk about accomplished, they've also had a lot of serendipity happen to them on and off. They may see it like that or not, I have no clue. But my question is, why bother planning so much? And life anyway does with you what it wants.
But you know, Surinder, you're absolutely right. I'll tell you what. For a boy who had no family at when my mom finally died, I got parents, my adopted parents, who took care of me. I mean, who are there even today, who are from my wife's side of the family. And I've got a sister I never had. I've got an aunt that gave me more love than my real aunt ever did. And it's so ironic, today, like I keep talking, I keep sometimes, I get up in the middle of the night and, I want to watch a little television, or I want to just sit and do a little reading. And I think back to myself and I say, every person in my life today who I hold true to my heart, whether it's my adopted parents, my adopted brothers, my aunt, my adopted family, I literally have no connection by blood. There is not one person in my life besides my children who are endearing to me that I have a connection with blood by blood to. It's so ironic, but such is life.
And that is so beautiful, right? Because that's not the only story that I know. I know a few friends like you who've seen the best that life has to offer. Best that life has to offer, but they've been adopted not even by aunts and uncles, but by friends, and have spent their entire lives with their friends. And it is so beautiful. One question I had, I don't want to lose it because it's very fragile as a thought also. You said they are not related to you by blood. Whoever, now we are not getting into all of that.
Yeah.
Just the fact that, do you think context and content of the relationship itself is not really dependent on blood, on even the way we nagged you? As far as we were concerned, you were just one guy we could punch holes in, and of course we never meant any harm. But you were like, Ali aaya to isko thoda pareshan kar de. So it was not that we thought कि अरे इसका जिंदगी बहुत बेहतर बना, ऐसा कुछ idea नहीं था. It was very fun and games thing. But yeah, we wished well for you कि ठीक है, अच्छा लड़का है, अच्छा हो जाएगा तो ठीक है. But not that we bothered so much.
No,
what
absolutely.
I'm trying to say is that this space of where you are really not bothered, but you are being honest to your own self.
Absolutely.
Does this trigger of goodness in your life? If you are honest to yourself in the most
you know what,
fragile part.
You asked me, does it bother you that these people who you love so much or not? The question you effectively asked me was, does it bother me the people that I'm fond of so much in my life are not related to me by blood? That was the basic premise of the question. Am I correct?
All along, not just related to family.
Yeah, all along. Yeah, that was the basic premise.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't, because so you know what? So I was born and lived and still do a life of great luxury by God's grace. I really do. Okay. And I don't mean that in any other way, but in truth, right? Through upbringing and through my mom's side of the family, I'm very, very blessed. So I've had that kind of a life. I've seen how it goes. But after my parents passed away, it was a huge, huge turning point for me, because it's not that I was ever in bad financial straits or anything, but it's just that relatives who were supposed to be there weren't. Not that you'd expect them to be. Look, everyone's got their own lives. Everyone has to deal with it, and there's no animosity. But there were people who were not related to me, who took me into their house, made me a brother, made me a son, made me a nephew, right? And gave me so much more. I mean, I've never lived in a joint family like I have lived there. I mean, I didn't even know families sat together in it because we never did it. With my mom, dad, and us, we were just a nuclear family. And our engagement with so-called relatives was yes, once in a way, it was very enjoyable. But it wasn't like a proper joint Indian family. I mean, I had no idea how that worked. I didn't know how the function worked, right? So for me, it was a major big thing. I mean, I couldn't figure out, should I tread left or should I tread right? So these people took me under their wing. And even today, he's such a paternal influence in my life. It's amazing. I mean, I don't have anything in common with them on blood. Nothing. We have nothing. We have nothing. Right. And tomorrow he's coming over, and my adopted mom's coming over, and the kids are excited because Dada and Dadi are coming over, and we are going to have a ball. But such is life. So I always say, there is always a space and a time for everything, and there are some people like my real dad, and he and I had such a great relationship as well with my father. And at the age of 9, he had said, if a man can find friends that number within the fingers of a palm, he's lived a life well lived. And it's true. It really is.
Yes.
Right. So I want this for my kids, in the sense, I'm sure you as a dad think about, sometimes, I don't know about if you do. I mean, you're a lot more in touch with the cosmos than I am, but as a dad, you always wonder, where should I draw the line where values are concerned and street smartness starts, right? Unfortunately or fortunately for me, values is still always one, because they will have the time to nurture the street smartness, but the maximum values you pick up is with your parents. And I picked up mine with my real parents. I picked up mine with my adopted parents, and it's just been a huge thing for me. It's been a very huge thing for me.
It's
It's been a
interesting
very
that you
huge.
bring this up. I mentioned this in one of the earlier episodes with one of the teachers, because it went into a lot of parenting issues that we spoke of. One of the things that I've tried to do is, instead of giving a list of do's and don'ts, I try and put forward the vulnerability part of living up to the value as well. Because very often it's kind of cast in stone. You have to speak the truth always. If you're going to reprimand her the moment she comes and says, okay, dad, I dropped that thing that was so dear to you and it's broken. Like she mentioned, when she was growing up, she said, this same glass had I dropped, everyone in the family would have reprimanded me. And now you dropped it, nobody is reprimanding. Do you reprimand yourself having dropped the glass and there's a mess? And I learned telling her, yes, we would have not, but you have a point.
Yeah.
So we left it there. Instead of lying about it, no, we are also very particular about this and that. And then sometimes, I think very rarely I tell her when I'm fed up. I'm saying, I'm a father, I decide. But
Yeah, I
and
know.
that is also
But
one of the things, because
it's also, but something, Surendra, that's also evolution. It's evolution of parenthood also. Every
yes,
generation takes circumstances that are acceptable within society now and then goes on, right?
yeah, for us
Like,
also.
yeah, but I just don't want to come to a point where my kids have to sacrifice values for political correctness. That shouldn't happen.
Um, okay, even that, okay, I just put this as an example. Uh, very often when we got a phone in the house, earlier phone was a big deal. So we also learn to lie better. With the mobile phone, we learn to lie even better than better. Oh, I'm not here, I'm here, I've reached this place, I'll reach in 20 minutes, I'll be there in 15 minutes.
Sure.
Oh, sorry, I missed your call. And whatever we do with. I realized very quickly that being a parent meant making that choice. And you have to live it in front of them for them to follow you. If you only tell them and you keep doing the reverse, then they will learn the reverse no matter how much you preach. You have to practice. Yeah. It cannot be American, do as I say, but don't do as I do. It cannot happen.
Oh, absolutely.
So you have to keep doing it. Absolutely. And then when I failed, there were a couple of things that I used to do and I used to tell her I'm trying. So she learned to respect that fact. Earlier, she was very angry that you keep saying this is a bad thing, but you continue doing it. I said, but I'm trying. It's not in my hand so far. Yes, it was wrong. So I realized that at least after 20 minutes of, say, anger issues sometimes. I had 2 patients in my house, you know a bit about that. My dad, my wife. So it was tiring. Some days I would be very angry or something or blast out. Yeah. And then, but I realized it wasn't continuous. Also because I've been meditating to help myself stay calm. So throughout, then I realized after a point I was not as angry. So that is the point you have to come back and make corrections if you can. And I used to come in, I used to come back and then be honest. Okay, look, I'm trying to control my anger. This is why I got angry because I'm frustrated about this part. Then she would actually become a mother and console me. Okay, it's okay. I understand. Some days you're very stressed out.
I know exactly what you're talking about. So 90% of the time, right, Surendra, we are afraid of failing emotionally in front of our children.
Yeah.
We don't, and this came to me like a bolt out of the blue just 2 years ago. Okay, and I'm not comfortable telling you the situation, but I'll tell you one thing. It's a great feeling to be able to fail emotionally in front of your kids and have your kids pick you up.
Yeah.
Right? It's just amazing. It really is. Right?
Because it's human.
It's human.
It's not about age.
So for the first time, as parents, parents have to realize we're not gods.
Yeah.
We're human beings, right? And as infallible as we want to be, we aren't, right? We are regular guys who are doing a regular job, trying to bring up 2 children or 1 child or 3 children the best way we can, giving them values that have stood us in good stead. And it's okay to fail at sometimes. It's absolutely fine. I mean, once you realize that, I mean, my daughters today mother me so much more than probably I father them. So, and I enjoy it. They're all of 11, and I think they're fantastic at it.
Okay.
And my wife is the consummate mother. I mean, the amount she's brought. So she elected to be a full-time mom, and the amount of effort that goes into being a mom. Oh man.
Yeah.
I mean, it is unbelievable. It is unbelievable. I mean, I loved my mom so much more after I realized and I saw how much my wife does for my children. It's insane. It's literally a full-time job, right?
It's a full-time job. True. The one thing that I wanted to ask you, it's interesting that you brought up this example. Even if this happens to be the last part, I want you to give me an answer on this. As parents, we are a bit of control freaks. Not because we want to be control freaks, because we are very fearful. At least the initial part of parenting to me, I would think I had a lot of issues, guilt, and that I'm not giving enough time. And off late, after COVID, once my work started in full flow, so often that she comes and wants to talk to me, but I just do not have the time. So I make up in some manner or the other, but some days are quite bad. Like the entire week could be bad sometimes. And you know that you just cannot give time. But now I made my peace with it, understanding that life has many more perspectives and you have to be equal to all the challenges that come up. How do you figure out the fragility and accept it. You said that you allowed yourself to emotionally break, or you may have broken by chance. I do not know what was the scene. But my question is just one little moment prior to that. How did you bring about that strength to be vulnerable in front of people who you think are your responsibility?
Okay, so I'll be very honest here. It was more of the futility of the situation. Okay, and I'll be honest, it wasn't a grand plan. It was more of the futility of the situation, where I said, you know what, they have to grow up and realize that we are adults who make mistakes just like them. And I said what I had to say out of pure futility, not realizing that my babies weren't babies anymore, right? And one of them came up to me and she said, "Dad, it's going to be okay." And you know, the so you know what's, Surinder, a lot of situations, and you definitely know this as a parent, right? And in fact, it may not hit you as hard as it is with your wife. I mean, I'm sorry I'm opening a can of worms for both of us here, but such is the truth. When kids come into those equation, they teach you more about yourself than you could have ever taught yourself,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Uh, kids are great tools for introspection, right?
Yeah,
Um, and I think we learn probably a lot more from children than the children learn from us. So I think
absolutely.
I think parenthood is actually more of a learning curve for us than it is for children in their childhood. Correct.
Sorry, you were saying something about how you have taught your kids to pray and how your family prays, something about uh,
Yeah. So I'm
belief.
saying, yeah. So the kids pray a lot, and I think it's good to kind of, prayer is a great way to admit things to yourself where you've, gone wrong in your life or in your day. All right. And I think prayers is a great tactic admission to yourself, Surinder, about what's really gone wrong, right? So they've learned the importance of it. And I think there's nothing better than to teach your kids a channel of introspection. And I think prayer is just the way to do it for all of us, right?
Hmm.
So
Basically, again, what I think about uh, these kind of conversations as well, it is just putting your vulnerability out there and trusting that it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to be fragile at times. This so-called macho image of we've got an answer to everything and we shall fight it out, or we shall. Even when I was growing up, I was quite happy to read that somebody had written, "You do not conquer nature; you are part
yeah,
of nature." And I thought it was such a telling statement on how humanity had missed the point uh, in the modern ages with the advent of technology. We kind of have this whole idea of being a superpower over everything.
yeah,
Even in our
yeah.
prayers and stuff like that, there is this whole thing of because I have prayed, I should get it. Whereas the element that you have put forward, that it is an understanding.
The point that I'm sorry to interrupt, but I will forget it again. The point that we were talking about prayer was, I was going to tell you that my kids always ask me, they said, what did you pray for? And yeah, the conversation stemmed from the fact that you and I were saying, we were making peace that if I die even tomorrow, you're going to be very satisfied.
Yeah.
Remember? So then that was the conversation. That was the trigger, correct? So I wanted to tell you about prayer, and I wanted to say that, when I sit to pray, and I always tell my kids this, they'll always say, Daddy, what did you ask for? And I can say it with the greatest pride and pride and solace that I don't ask for anything. I just ask to just let it be. Just so. there comes, and it's not about me being a better human being or a superior human being. It's, Surinder, you come to a point in your life where you realize the race was with yourself, correct? And I've mentioned this before. And the funny part is, you've won 5 years ago. Because the moment you've crossed that bridge or that threshold from being competitive, I think you evolve into a state of consciousness where it's not about the journey. It's not it's a very Malay statement, but it's about just being true to yourself in every possible way. Even today, when I sign off, client will always come, and with the work I'm in, you interact directly with the owners, and they'll always come and ask. They're like, "Are you sure the shoot's gone well? Are you sure you're happy with the job?" And I will always tell them with the greatest pride, and I don't mean this with any kind of overconfidence or anything, but I always tell them, I said, I doubt I could do a better job than this, right? Till the time I don't say that, I will keep trying. Okay, but I think that's the best thing to tell yourself, because when you really believe that, and you have to believe it out of the greatest humility. I mean, you can't believe it out of anything else. It can't be pride. It can't be, no one's as great as me. It's absolutely out of the greatest humility you tell your client that I've done the best job I can. Right? I think there is no better sleep to be had.
Okay, this is a funny thing because this reminds me of a quote that I used to use with a friend of mine, and as a lucky coincidence, it is about the other Ali, Muhammad Ali. He used to say, "It's hard to be humble when you are as great as I am."
Yeah.
And she used to remind me, and I was like, "Yeah, well, the tiger is old now, a little wiser, and understands there are other things at work." It's interesting because I remember as a person out of college, or maybe I was just working or something, and I had asked this of many people, including a friend that I remember, that we were sitting, and I just asked him, if you could change one thing about your life, what would you change? And his answer was, oh, many things. And I found that that is not a well-lived life. Even young as I was, and very proud of whatever inner journey that I am.
To be honest, I get that question so many times. I really do, Surinder. And honestly, I wouldn't change one thing in my life.
Yeah, because
it's been a privilege to live in.
Yeah, and it is all interconnected. It is just life bubbling all the time. What is it that you can choose? Even the good things are bad and the bad things are good. When you get wiser, you realize what you are harking after is actually going to sting you.
Absolutely. Or what you're harking after is actually been with you all your life. You've just never looked at it. Correct?
Possibly.
Yeah.
So it's been a wonderful chat.
As always, Suran.
It's gone from
so long. I know. You have that ability. You have an innate ability to connect, and it's something that I've always admired about you. I don't have it, but I think you have a great way of the art of conversation is still truly and well alive in you.
I just hope that means in a good sense, because as a kid I was reprimanded for this for a long time.
You and I are too close for me to mollycoddle my words with you. You know that.
So thank you so much for being on this podcast. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thanks, Surinder. It was a pleasure to have me. It was a pleasure to be on it, and it was a privilege to be a part of all of this. This body of work.
Thank you.
All right.
I'll see you around.
Bye, Surinder. Take care.
Bye.